Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another knife video. Today's video is on the Benchmade 119 Arvensis. Now this 119 Arvensis is right in the sweet spot for me in that 6-inch blade class. This is a Shane Seibert design. It's made out of 154 cm, which Benchmade is very good at. I've had another Benchmade knife that I very much like in 154 cm, and it's been a great blade for me, and that is my pocket knife, the Mini Barrage, which I have greatly enjoyed, and so I thought this Arvensis would be a pretty good choice for me. Now, I've had my eyes on this thing for quite a while now and finally pulled the trigger after watching these blades for just about a year. This is about a year-old design at this point, and so I finally did get my hands on it. I opted for the satin finish versus the black coated. I tend to not generally like coated blades, and I strip them anyway, so I thought this would be the right way for me to go. Here you see the Arvensis up against some blades in the same blade class, Becker BK7, SE6, and the Boker Vox Rolled. All knives that are right in that same sort of class, and so I thought it would be good to kind of take a look at these one up against another. I mean, you're kind of going from your tactical down through your survival blades to your wilderness blades, and so in my opinion the Arvensis fits somewhere right in the middle between a tactical blade and a good survival or wilderness blade. Now this Arvensis is a Shane Seibert design, and it exhibits some very familiar features such as these oversized hollow pins. If you've ever seen the Benchmade 162 Bushcrafter, you've seen similar pins. It's a very similar type of construction and looks very, very stylish, just the same as that Bushcrafter. Now this blade does have a saber grind. It has an unsharpened swedge, nice finger choil, scallop G10 handle scales, as I mentioned, the oversized hollow pins, and a nice ample pommel on the back end. Now I've not yet done any testing or field use with this blade yet. I've been itching to get my hands on it, so let's try a little bit of work here and see how this thing will do. Now I've been pretty excited to see how this would do in carving tasks. The first thing I do know right off the get-go is that this hump right here may possibly be a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, that's really a tactical style feature that's giving you a finger guard for stabbing to make sure that you don't run your hand down the blade, and it gives you some quality purchase. In terms of my preference and what I like as a wilderness blade, I know that that's going to bother me at least a little bit. I have to basically put my thumb over that hump to make sure that I avoid it when I'm doing my carving tasks, and so it's just a little bit on the awkward side. And just real quick, giving you a look at how this fits in my hand. Plenty of real estate on the handle. Again, you have this thumb ramp here that you can really get a good lock in if you want it. Nice finger choil. I find that my hand wraps just about perfect, so in terms of the size and the space you have with this finger guard kind of spanning between your two fingers, it's very comfortable. Like I said, the only thing I think is going to be a little bit of an issue for me is where this point pushes right into the meat of my thumb, and so that's something that I'm going to have to keep an eye on and see if it bothers me while I do my carving tasks. Now right off the get-go, just my very first impression is that I really like this grind geometry. Some blades, when I first try them on wood, I cannot find that edge, but this to me is exactly where it should be. So right off the get-go, I'm able to find that edge, run the blade just so gently down the wood, and actually get some nice curls coming off without even trying. And that's a good sign, because that to me means that the geometry of this blade is right where I like it, and it's something that I'm used to. So that's just a great start and a good first impression. Now in terms in taking some nice, tight, fine little curls, I can just go ever so gentle and delicate and get these curls just to run right down this wood. Obviously some of them are falling off, but that is not the blade's fault. The blade wants to do the job. It's able to take these really nice, tight, fine little curls without too much difficulty, and for that purpose, this is excellent. Nice, tight, fine little curls. That's sweet. And now in terms of doing some heavier carving, just gonna start to work at this piece of wood here. Now in this case, you'll notice I am not using the choil. Maybe I'll try it. Yeah, see, I don't necessarily need the choil for this. I kind of need to be back on the blade more. And I find that I do want to put my thumb here just to give it a little support while I work, so it's very unfortunate that this hump is here. I may need to do some work on this. I'm thinking if I'm going to keep this blade, I should probably grind that down and get it a little flatter and a little more comfortable for me. But just in terms of carving, let's talk about the blade and the geometry. I mean, this thing's definitely able to get through this wood really nice and easy. Like I was mentioning before, I really like this grind angle. Feels good, comfortable, nice, totally capable of hogging out this wood if I need to, getting some nice chunks. And now getting a little bit finer if I wanted to work this into a point. And I can just ease up on this thing. Pretty much made quick work of that. Nice. Now in terms of the stabbing tasks, I mean, I'm not a very tactical guy, but obviously this is a tactical blade, so this will be required to stab. I'm just going to give you some impressions on how it feels for me. Now, compared to some of the other knives I have right off the get-go, I can tell you this doesn't have quite the same depth of penetration with the same given effort. I mean, I'll just do an example for you here. This is the Arvensis. Here is my BK7, and I mean, with basically the exact same amount of effort, I got a deeper penetration with the BK7. I think it's slightly thinner in the grind on the BK7, so it's able to penetrate deeper into the wood a little bit easier. Maybe this saber grind is just a little bit fatter down here, and plus too, it does have the unsharpened swedge at the top, so you have that nice stout, pronounced and beefy tip. So obviously the tip's going to be strong and durable, but at the same time maybe not get quite the same penetration as you would with a thinner blade. Now at the same time, in terms of my hand wanting to slide down the knife, I mean, these G10 handle scales are just a tiny bit on the slick side, but at the same time it's pretty decent in terms of grip. I mean, the good thing is in this point you do have these finger guards, so that's giving you a nice spot where your hand can rest right on that blade. Let me just turn around here real quick and show you my grip so that you can see what it looks like as I stab down. I mean, you can see my hand is totally wrapping onto the finger guard and gives me a good place to rest my hand. So for stabbing tasks, even though I don't get quite the same penetration as maybe one of the other blades, it's definitely comfortable and will do a great job. Now, I'm not completely set up for chopping where I only have this lanyard, but I don't have one that wraps around my hand. But let's just give this some good wax and see what kind of penetration I'll get into this log. I mean, definitely solid, deep penetration into the edge of this log. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm using my finger just to wrap onto this little hook on the back side of the handle here, and it's holding pretty well. I'm also using this lanyard by design for the rest of my fingers to kind of hold on and give me some additional grip while I use this. And just a little snap cut there, going nice down deep inside this log. And now just a close-up of the blade showing you the penetration into that log. Looking pretty good. I actually buried the handle all the way into that finger guard. So this thing's definitely biting nice and deep. I mean, that's a good sign for a reasonably light knife. I mean, this is only a 6-inch blade, and so in terms of chopping, that's pretty good. Let's try some more. Now what I can tell you for certain is even cutting through that little 2-inch log, this definitely has a hot spot right on this hook. I mean, the tang is slightly pronounced outside of the handle scales, and it's a little bit on the square side, and it definitely caught my finger as I was cutting. I did want to re-grip a number of times to make sure that I held onto the knife okay. And of course, like I mentioned before, I did not have an additional lanyard wrapped around my hand, which certainly would have helped. But in terms of the chopping and how it felt, it definitely had a hot spot on that hook right on my finger. And finally, just to wrap this up, I'm going to do some light batoning here. I mean, nothing super serious, but just trying to get a feel for how this will work. And right off the get-go, feels pretty nice in terms of the geometry of the blade, the way it splits the wood apart, what it feels like in my hand. Look at that. I mean, pretty nice in terms of the ability for this just to blow the wood apart. I mean, this is not certainly as wide a log as you can do with a blade like this, but it's probably realistically just about perfect. I mean, couple this with an axe and you could do pretty much any work you needed to. Sweet. Nice. And now finally, just to wrap this up, I mean, I didn't do a ton of work, but I did enough work to see if this edge would still be in perfect shape, and of course it is. Typical Benchmade, not going to let you down. Take a quick look at that tip there, no problem. No issues with the spine. Couple of scuffs, but that's par for the course. Now the sheath system for this Arvensis is wonderful. This is an awesome factory sheath that comes with the knife. It's a thermoplastic. I'm not sure if it's technically Kydex or Boltaron or whatever, one of those types of thermoplastics, but right off the get-go, I mean, you can see there's a number of different ways that you can use this to attach it to different systems. This has excellent retention right off the get-go with very little, if not no rattle at all. And so in terms of retention, I mean, that is just super nice for a factory sheath. It's got this tiny little indent here that kind of indexes behind the finger guard and holds it in place. So just right there alone, it does a pretty good job. Never mind, you have an additional snap to really keep that in place. So in my opinion, this sheath is great. I think it's an excellent factory sheath, one of the better ones that I've seen, and for that, it really actually starts to set this knife apart in terms of what you get for the money and a nice factory setup. This is great. Now you do get this malice clip with the sheath, which allows you to basically feed it through this little opening that they've made and use it for MOLLE attachments on packs. I've already done that on one of my packs and it worked very well. The only thing that's a little bit tricky with these malice tabs, and you kind of need to get used to it, is that there is a tab here that when you clip it together basically holds the plastic in place, and so if you see there, you kind of need to get like a flathead screwdriver, or if you actually had fingernails, which I don't, you might be able to get that up. And if it's in a tricky spot, it's really cumbersome to try to get that back off. So that's the only thing that's kind of a downside with the clips like this, but other than that, it does work pretty well. Now the other part of this that you do get is this Kydex bolt-on piece. Now basically this is set up with the bolt pattern to be able to go either on these upper two or middle two eyelets, and so you can pretty much position this how you want, and if you look you could even carry this scout style, which is pretty cool. So obviously you could carry it right hand or left hand. This snap actually is removable and you can flip it around from one side of the sheath to the other, and so very, very flexible in terms of your ability to use this in a number of different ways. Now this is pretty much like a MOLLE clip, and so you can attach this to a pack. It's a little bit wider than a standard MOLLE loop, so you would need a wider loop to accommodate it, but it certainly would work excellent on a belt and pretty good on like a double wide MOLLE loop, and so that's what I've also tried, and it works extremely well. And just to wrap it up, one final thing to consider, which is very nice about this, it does allow you to either mount it vertically either direction, so you could put the knife up or down depending on how you want to carry it, or you could mount it in the scout style like I already mentioned, and again you can put it on either side of the sheath to allow you to carry it right-handed or left-handed. So very, very versatile factory setup with the sheath. Well, so there you have it, the Benchmade 119 Arvensis. I definitely like it. I think it has really only one fatal flaw, like I mentioned a number of times, is the thumb ramp. That's really, really a hot spot on your hand, but other than that, an excellent, capable knife. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.